Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Joanne Davey. We warmly welcome Mr. Kenneth Bedingfield, US Corporate Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Northrop Grumman, and Mrs. Linda Bedingfield and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, St John the Baptist Primary School, Woy Woy, and from Victoria, Warrenwood Primary School. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Reuben Collings. Reuben Collings was born in 1893 in Wollongong, New South Wales, one of 11 children of Henry and Anne Collings. Reuben's father was a prominent figure in Wollongong, serving as an alderman and deputy mayor at various times. The family was brought in the Methodist Church, where Henry Collings was an active worker and choir master. After attending the local public school, Reuben went to the Metropolitan Business College in Sydney before working as a clerk for Richardson and Wrench, merchants in Sydney. Collings left his position in Sydney to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force in April 1915, shortly before the landings at Gallipoli. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas on board the troop ship Themistocles a little over a month later. He joined the 19th Battalion on Gallipoli the following August. Private Collings remained on the peninsula for the rest of the campaign, and after returning to Egypt the following January was promoted to corporal. After transferring to France to fight on the Western Front, the 19th Battalion participated in the fierce fighting around the French village of Pozières in July and August 1916. Collings came through without injury. Some weeks later, he was again promoted, reaching the rank of sergeant. In November 1916, the 19th Battalion was on the front line near the village of Fleur. On the evening of the 14th of November, the battalion took part in an operation to capture some of the German trenches. Sergeant Collings found it easier to walk on the parapet of the trench to get his men into order before the attack began. As he did so, he was shot in the abdomen and collapsed. Some of his men took him for help, but Collings died about half an hour later. A friend later wrote to Reuben Collings' father, Henry, to tell him how Reuben died. He wrote, "It is useless me saying anything, because words cannot express my feelings. The true meaning of death is not brought home to us until we lose one whom we hold dear. It is only then that we realise the presence and awfulness of war." Today, Reuben Collings is buried at the Wollongong British Cemetery under the words, "He died for liberty, empire and home." Sergeant Reuben Collings was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Reuben Collings, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we the left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen and students, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.